Slade. I live at 54161 Cherry Road, Callahan, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here tonight as a grandparent taxpayer concerned. I was here last time and talked to the attorney. I would like to ask the school board attorney, did you seek an advisory opinion on whether Dr. Drew can be an employee of the school board and also have a contract with the school board?
Yeah,
And
I'm sorry.
I was going to finish and then
Sure.
follow up. And did you know whether Dr. Drew was employed by the school during the same time her company, Florida Psychological Associates, held a contract? Are you, the school board, going to place the mental health services out for bid? I know that the attorney stated that Florida statute 287 allowed the school board to use the no bid contracts to purchase mental health services. I believe that the legislative intent is clear and that when possible, the practice of the school board should be to invite any and all providers to the table for public business. There are a number of businesses, mental health companies here in Nassau County that could do a good job. When you enter into a no bid contract with the spouse of an elected official, it creates an appearance of favoritism and propriety which contradicts the legislative intent. I would like to know whether the attorney believes that the Florida statute 287-001 legislative intent supersedes the section that allows the exemption. I believe it does, and the school board should work to adhere to the legislative intent. Under Florida statute 287-84, it states that preference should be given to Florida businesses. Why are we using out-of-state online private schools for students who are struggling to graduate? We should use online schools in Florida, and let's keep our tax dollars here. Finally, Madam Chair, I understand there appears to be a request from near $1 million for this entrance road and development and the school. I would like to know whether this now means the taxpayers are going to spend over $5 million for this project. I would also like to know, does your agreement include any interest to be payable to the school board back? And when do you think we will recoup all the money we have loaned for the construction of this road? I thank y'all for letting me speak and then listen to if you have anything to say.
Any comments?
I have a comment, and let me state for the record. Last year, when Dr. Drew's contract came up, the focus on the contract, as Mr. Slade indicated, was on the competitive bidding process, and that's where the research, and that's where the focus was. And so when the contract came before the board, with regards to whether or not we should be approved, that was my focus. My recommendation, based on my research, was that we could approve the contract. What I was unaware of, if I was told I didn't acknowledge, was that Dr. Drew was an employee of the school district. With the ESE program, I know Ms. Gregory, I know Captain Harding, I remember Dr. Todd used to do his services. I was unaware that Dr. Drew was employed. If I was told she was employed, it didn't acknowledge me, but I don't recall being told she was employed. Had I known she was employed, my recommendation would have been different. My recommendation would have been, there might have been some additional options out there with regards to whether or not we can label her an independent contractor, or with regards to maybe she needs to resign from her position. I was unaware that she was employed at the time I advised the board to go through with the contract. Had I known that, my advice would have been different. This year, when Dr. Drew's contract came up and I was aware she was employed, we dealt with it accordingly and we were able to approve her contract tonight because number one, the services she's providing are not subjected to bidding, and number two, she's no longer employed. What Mr. Slade is asking, in citing a specific statute, asking me whether or not the legislature's intent or goal to have things selectively a bid in competition overrides and/or trumps the statute I'm citing. I don't think it does. I'm not specific with his familiar statute. As a school board attorney, and I enjoy this job, it presents a lot of challenges. There's a lot of different issues of law, and there's a lot of different statutes we have to deal with. With regards to the contract last year, I wish I would have known Dr. Drew was an employee, so I could have revised this forward accordingly. That falls on me. If I was told and I did acknowledge it, shame on me. If I wasn't told, perhaps it's a question I should have asked. But as the contract stands now, and what this board approved with regards to that contract going forward, my position is it was in accordance with the statute. What Mr. Slay is bringing up with regards to these two statutes and two competing legislative interests, it's a question for a different time. I don't think it has any, I don't think it avoids or has any true impact on what the board approved tonight. So, Mr. Slay, I don't know if that answers your questions. Your questions were well thought out. But with regards to your seeking an advisory opinion, there's no need for me to seek an advisory opinion, Mr. Slay. In accordance with Chapter 112, had I known Dr. Drew was an employee, I would have advised the board differently. It's clear. There's a conflict of interest for the board to enter into a contract with an employee. I just didn't realize she was an employee when I advised the board to go through with that contract.
So there will not be a bid out process on this contract?
There's no
Is that
need.
correct?
At this juncture, based on my research, there's no need to bid this contract out. Just like as I indicated, there's certain contracts, attorney services, certain services that have to go out that don't need to be bid out. Dr. Drew's services fall into one of those categories. Does that mean that the board cannot bid out that contract? No. It doesn't mean that. What it means is the board doesn't have to bid out that contract.
Okay, and I will remind the board that we have a motion and second on our conflict of interest administrative procedure. So that's really where we should be focusing, if I'm correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So any questions or comments from the board on what we have a motion and second on? Dr. Baldwin.
I have a question about that question. So after we vote on this, then maybe comment on the remainder of the questions.
Absolutely. We don't want to just ignore Mr. Slay's concerns. But I want to make sure we stay focused on where we have our motion first. So any questions or comments from the board on the motion and second to advertise Administrative Rule 6.25 conflict of interest? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Now, Dr. Paulgren, if you'd like to address Mr. Slay's concerns, please do.
Just one of them. In the school choice issue of online schools. So I understand your concerns, but I do believe that as a proponent of school choice and our kids having the best options available, sometimes that means online schools that may be out of state or operate in different locations. As a parent of kids who have utilized many different online school options, I believe the parent should have the right to choose what is absolutely best for their child, evaluate the curriculum. And that may be what I call a la carting their choices and taking some through Florida Virtual School, some through K-12, some through a variety of other learning platforms. Because our kids deserve to have, the kids and our parents deserve to have every choice available to them that we have to offer. They're working to build their education in a very complex world where it's a moving target for careers that they're trying to shoot for that aren't even on the board today. So I am one who believes in a variety of choices for our students and our parents to have those choices. So I appreciate the concerns about keeping our tax dollars in the state, but I also believe we have a responsibility to our students and our parents in school choice.
Thank you, Dr. Paulgren. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Slay.
I did have a question.
Dr. Paulgren?
He also did ask, and so I did want to know the answer to this. His final question was about the road. I
Yes.
believe, And
Yes.
Sir, I'll ask that you not
so the
speak
road
out.
and I couldn't remember everything you were asking. What was the final question about?
There was
the road
an
and
additional $1 million asked from Ray and Near for the purpose of the entrance of the road to the development and the school.
Yes,
And
sir.
I would like to know whether the means, as taxpayers, now it's over $5 million, and do we have in the agreement on the school board with the contractor, is there any interest on that money that was loaned to them? And how will the school board get back and recoup it, the taxpayers' money?
Dr. Lewis?
Who told you that Rainier asked for $1 million, additional $1 million, and the school district awarded them an additional $1 million for the road?
Well, it was told to me, I don't.
Yeah,
think it's
but yeah, well, it's not true. Okay? The agreement that we have with formerly Terra Point, now Radiant, was to build a certain portion of the road. The board awarded a bid on the construction of the road as part of the agreement. The board approved agreement with Radiant in that regard. That amount has been set. I don't know where this additional $1 million is coming from, but that's not true.
In the agreement, was there any interest put in for that loan to pay back the school board?
We're not loaning Radiant any money. The money will be recouped from our part, and I guess their part of the construction of the road too, with regard to the county ordinance as applicable for mobility fees. You asked earlier, I think initially, about the time frame for collecting those mobility fees. I couldn't tell you, and I don't think anybody could probably predict that. I think a lot of that's going to depend on the market, and it's going to depend on how quickly businesses and residences come into that area. But we will recoup the entire amount of money for the road construction, including engineering fees, so anything that's included, in that. So we will recoup all of our money from that at some point.
Dr. Lewis, is it uncommon for the school district to have to build the road to go to the new school?
This situation is different. It's a different situation than we've been in before. There's a different situation with regard to the ENCPA and change, first of all, with state law a few years ago, and now with county ordinances with regard to that. But I can tell you that we did build a road from Minor Road to Yulee High School
Yes.
a number of years ago, which I believe was, I don't know what the distance of that is. Kevin can tell me if he were here, but it's probably half a mile to a mile. So, we build, we have to build turn lanes, things like that. Entrance to the school, provide public access to the school from the roadways. So it's not an unusual thing for us to have to do. This situation is different because of the change in the laws and because of the ordinances, and then also the agreement that we have with Brady.
And when we built that road to Yulee High School, were we reimbursed the cost of that road?
No.
Right, so, I mean, this is a pretty good opportunity in my
Right.
eyes.
Yeah. And that was on our property. And as a matter of fact, technically, as of this time, and once the road is constructed, we own that property. The school district, the school board owns that property that the road will be built on. Now, at some point, that road will be transferred over to the county for maintenance. We don't want the maintenance of the road. But that kind of outlines sort of the process that it's supposed to follow. Now, by that point, we will have recouped our expenditures, for the construction of the road, and, we'll be through that aspect of it. So I hope that answers the question.
But there's no interest put on the loan of the money.
And we don't consider it a loan. It's part of the agreement, between, that entity, that organization, and that business and the school district to build a portion of that road, and they will build the portion from A1 and A200 beyond, that point, beyond where I think their retail center will be, and then from that point leading into the school, we'll build that portion.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Any other questions or comments from, not questions, any other comments for Mr. Slay. We wouldn't put you through questions. I didn't mean to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not aware of any other public presentations, so I take that back. Thank you. Pastor Mark Stallmaker. Stallmaker?
Stallmaker, yes ma'am.
I apologize. I was pretty good, though.
You got it.
If you could state your name and address for the record, sir, you have 3 minutes.
Mark